odds favor Ali in this fight, 6-5, if you can imagine. If ever there was a chance to make a score, you had to run to Las Vegas, which I did with my friend, and every time we could put together and put it all on Larry Holmes. Is that like taking the Saudi blood money, though, Lubie? You had to watch one of your idols all time just take an unbelievably ugly beating, and you're yelling in the corner because you have money on it. Come on, Larry! Knock him out! Money is at the root of all evil.
That's pretty
especially
evil.
when it comes to imagine that. You're rooting for Ali to get, I mean, well, you were just screaming, step in and stop it, ref, it's a killing.
All right, you weren't saying that. You were saying knock his old ass out.
Nah, we didn't need that. That was the biggest gimme I've ever seen in my lifetime, right? And it's always good to be right in those situations.
The time. Wake up with Defo, joined by Lubie. Welcome to the Defo Show.
I still remember it, Lubie, like it was yesterday. Running to Las Vegas with my friend Mighty Melendez. We had seen the picture of Ali in the newspaper. The LA Times had a big picture of Ali in front of the sports section, looking like he was as cut and ripped as he's ever been in his lifetime. We had seen him as a bloated shell of himself in his previous 4 or 5 fights. And everybody jumped on the bandwagon, right? They all jumped on the bandwagon. The odds plummeted, and here's Larry Holmes, essentially, maybe a half a step, half a jab away from his prime. And he's going to toy with Ali. Actually, and almost, it was criminal to watch this. And a shame that they ever made this matchup to begin with. And, we're in there cheering and screaming, hey, come on, Larry, who was really like the redheaded stepchild of the heavyweight division, was he not? Because he never really got the credit that he deserved for being a really good fighter. He didn't have tremendous knockout power. That was part of it. And, naturally, that was going to cause a lot of excitement, although Ali was not a big knockout artist either. And was not especially heavy hitter. I mean, he would knock people out, accumulation of blows, but, was not really, except in the one fight that remains suspect to this day. And you would have to side with the idea that maybe something was up there when Sonny Liston, he took a worse dive than most NBA players. And it looked like a soccer game. It really did. Broke out in the middle of this championship fight. Guy flops, and he literally looks up at Jersey Joe Walcott after Walcott reached a count of 8. And I think Jersey Joe said to him, stay down, Sonny, if you know what's good for all of us.
He wasn't hit. If you watch the replay, there was no connection.
I think the shot that James Caan threw in the Godfather movie was, a heavier connection. And, he threw the garbage can lid and he missed a guy by like 3 feet. And Coppola must have been drinking wine when he left that in. That was one of the worst edit jobs ever in a brilliant movie, a movie that, is right up there with any influential movie of all time, and yet he let this hideous scene go, and that was, I think that punch had more impact than the Ali punch on Sonny Liston in Lewiston, Maine. Anyway, good morning to everybody. What we continue with this same theory that wow, how could it be in springtime that you turned against the sporting world, because we've been just getting, especially here in South Florida, tonight's the night, is it not? You have 2 games on tap in the postseason. Very telling games for both the Florida Panthers on the ice in the NHL, as they're on the road against the vaunted Boston Bruins, an historically good team, having played an okay game. But were they not handled in that game? What would you say, Lubie? Were you encouraged by Game 1 of the Florida Panthers-Boston Bruins series in any other sense than, they weren't overwhelmed? But they were never in command in that game either. At no time in that game were you thinking, okay, Panthers got this one.
Never felt like they were going to win. They cut it to 2-1 off a bad play on their end, to be brutally honest. Kachuk took it, was aggressive, and scored, but it wasn't like they had put together an offensive set. The Bruins made a mistake.
Puck kind of drifted to Kachuk, in a circumstance where you don't usually see that sort of action, and he made a great play. Individually made a great play, as he's been doing all season long, but he can't be all that you have. How is it that they were so aggressive, and yet it seemed like they were out of the game? What is it that the Bruins do? And they did this without their captain, Bergeron, which a lot of people have been mentioning. But you never had the feeling watching that game that the Panthers were going to win it, did you?
Oh.
From the time they sang the anthem, which, by the way, Jim Sarney asked me this, am I a fan of fat anthem singers?
You are.
Of course.
Yes, you are. 100%.
We love the fat guy in anything. As long as fat people are functioning, we are happy. It gives us, a vicarious thrill, knowing, through all the times and the travails that we've gone through with trying to manage weight. And now, I mean, it's even more difficult, Lubie, as you know, by doing a Mike Mayo Lunchbox show, especially when on the road with that thing, where is it Mayo or is it the proprietor? I think it's a mixture of both. Where we always end up with like 10 more dishes than we need to sample. Joe Beja kind of has that down at Gulfstream, doesn't it? He brings out like three things, but it's way more than enough, right?
It's just enough, if not a little bit more.
Yeah.
I'm not going to complain because I get lots of leftovers, and I'm a big fan of leftovers. But yes, it's fun when like when we were at Christina Juan's, she brought out like 10 dishes.
Yeah,
it was just 3 of us.
You want to? Did I miss something? Was there an invitation here to the Last Supper? I don't know what it is. That being said, I mean, can the Cats come out and kind of feast on Boston a little bit?
Nah,
I don't know. I mean, can they do something to set them on their heels early in this game?
Yes, I think they can get the upper hand. I don't know if they're going to have them set aback. This Boston team seemed very disciplined and they seemed very prepared, and that's the problem. Is the Panthers don't always feel like that. Look, Kachuk is aggressive enough, and he has enough heart where he might be able to steal a goal early, and then maybe Lyon will stand on his head. Their defense sort of scares me. They do allow a lot of not shots, but opportunities. They allow a lot of at the end of the game. Yeah, it was disallowed, but they just let the Bruins, when they were down 2 goals and they needed to be the aggressor, they let the Bruins live in their side of the ice for like 2 minutes. And if that's the case, you're in trouble. Because the Bruins aren't going to let you do that. The Bruins.
No, they're pretty good at smothering the opposition. I mean, we mentioned the dreaded words in hockey. We should imagine you're having dinner with Gary Bettman and you say, hey, Gary, are you a big fan of the center ice trap? And even Bettman, who seems to be emotionless and totally detached from reality as a commissioner of a major sports league like the NHL, probably drops his fork right there and says, don't ever mention that again. Never. Don't mention Dean Smith, the 4 corners, and don't ever mention Roger Nielsen and the center ice trap, which usually is a sign that you don't have a very good team and you're trying to find some way to just kind of muck it up a little bit and thwart the other team from doing their thing. That's not necessarily the case with the Bruins, who obviously have had tremendous success this year, but I thought I saw a little of that in action. I don't know that I could technically describe exactly what it is, but what it is nobody gets past like the blue line, right? Everything is taking place in the center of the ice, but your team also loses some of its aggression in the process. They seem content to sit on that lead. It looked to me like the Bruins thought 3-1 was enough, and it turned out to be the case. So we have that going tonight, Lubie. And then it's going to be tough. I mean, are you going to go split screen? How are you going to handle this? Now, you barely have access to your own television sets as it is, with the lovely Shirley dictating everything that happens in the Lubitz household. And for good reason, right? I would imagine of that, sort of major outlay that you had to have at the beginning, that much of that money was hers, which... No, but you're pretty good about saving money, Lubie. And people don't realize that you're out every night doing something. I mean, you're like me in the old days where you were working constantly.
My wife does really well. I'm highly involved. Believe me, financially, it's not what a lot of people would think it is. And she doesn't rule everything. It's just with the TV, she doesn't like sports at all. So if I put on a game, then it totally separates us, which is fine. It happens, but tonight's gonna be interesting. The fact that they don't start at the same time is clutch. Look, as much as I care about the Panthers, I care about the Heat more. So the fact that they don't start at the same time is good. But I'll watch the Panthers, and then when the Heat start, I'll probably put the Panthers on my phone. To do 2 TVs is a lot, and I don't like the split screen. It confuses me. But the fact that I can watch stuff on my phone now, so I'll put my phone down and I'll make that like a TV. Then I'll have the Heat on the big TV.
All right, so you're going to go with both. See, I'll find myself switching back and forth. I don't know if you remember the movie Heat with De Niro and Pacino, which was a pretty good movie. I mean, as action movies go, they're robbing a bank. I don't know if you remember this movie. And De Niro is kind of the ringleader. I guess you had John Voight in there also as the main guy that was fencing all of this, stolen money or whatever, merchandise. In this case, it was cash. He has to go, he wants to go and get retribution on this guy who ratted him out and caused him all these problems when they were going to get away with an easy bank robbery. The guy's name was Wayne Grow. I don't know. You remember that? When De Niro goes after Wayne Grow, he actually goes out of his way to shoot the guy. But before he shoots him, he says, "Look at me. Look at me." In typical De Niro fashion. And he makes the guy look at him, and then he puts a bullet between his eyeballs. Isn't that what you get when you're watching too much sports on TV and the spouse or the girlfriend is not into sports at all? Where, you're watching a game and go, "Oh, wow, look at that, man. Can you believe it? Duncan Robinson made a shot." And she's like saying, seething as she's trying to talk to you and says, "Look at me. Look at me. Take your eyes off that game for a second." I don't know that you're going to be able to do that tonight, though, Willie, because you have, and I think your inclination is to watch the Miami Heat because you like to fetch about the Miami Heat like nobody else that I know. They'll be down 1-0, and Lubie's already like screaming at the television set. Can you believe it? They're mailing it in. Now, tonight, playing with the so-called proverbial house money. We discussed that yesterday. And the problem with house money is you have a tendency to piss it away. Do you not? How many people tuck like, you win a couple of dimes and you put 1,000 in your shoe or whatever, someplace where you wouldn't even remember you had it until you took your clothes off hours later. Not many people do that. Do you set a limit? You degenerates out there, let's say that you're quickly up 300 at the track, which was a situation that I incurred the other day. Do you say, "Hey, no matter what, I'm leaving here up 200? Or do you piss it all away and end up losing a couple of hundred for the day? What would you say was more common, Mike Lubie? It's house money. I think it's to treat house money with just reckless abandon.
Yes.
And end up finding yourself in a situation where reality comes into play much later on, and you're thinking, "Well, geez, I only lost 100. But you were up $500. How could that be? How could you be satisfied with that?" And yet, we as self-sabotaging creatures that we are, in the degenerate end of things, usually are satisfied. "Well, I only lost 100 today," and you're happy with that. So playing with house money is not necessarily always a good thing, because it might give you sort of a false sense of security that you're going to leave there a winner and you're going to be fine. And the Heat find themselves. What was that, Lube?
If you're the Heat, I would act like you're down 0-1.
Can you do that? You're winning the series so far.
This team doesn't. This team, look, Scoop said it yesterday, and I'm scared you're going to see what you saw from the Knicks yesterday. The Knicks, as much as they'd like to have won yesterday, they know they're up 1-0. And the Heat.
Well, the difference there is none of the Cavs stars are going to be sitting on the bench, or were sitting on the bench, as looks like the case with Antetokounmpo. The Greek possible MVP. I think Embiid is going to win the MVP. That's just my feeling. I don't know that he's. All of these guys, you can make a case that they're deserving, that are in the so-called conversation about the MVP in the NBA this year. I just think Embiid probably did more for his team than anybody else in a situation where, and yet that being said, they still only finished third in the East. As great of a season as this guy had. And the Bucks, were clearly superior this year, but without Giannis in there, I'm thinking they're El Finito tonight.
No,
I know it happens this way because we did have a couple of reversals in the games that took place last night. Game 2 of series that involved teams that lost at home in a couple of the spots. The Cavs turned around and clobbered the Knicks. It was no contest. And the Suns, they were still in the game. I guess it was 59 all at halftime, and Kawhi Leonard was playing out of his mind for the Clippers, but the Suns managed to pull away and seize control of the game late, like in the third quarter.
Booker was good in game 1. He was great in game 2. If Booker's great, Durant's really good, Paul doesn't suck. Without Paul George, the Clippers only have so much. Like the fact that they're in that game, a lot of that game was just because of how good Kawhi is. They're missing Paul George. They're missing a guy who's a top 25 player in the league, an all-star. You're missing a guy like that. You're not going to be. The Suns have put together 4 all-stars. 3. Because Aiden's a borderline all-star. Without Paul George, the Clippers were only going to do so much if the Suns get games like that out of all 4 of their guys. The Bucks are at home. They have a great home court advantage. They still do have 2 other all-stars. Drew Holiday played okay in game one. I presume he's going to play a lot better. Middleton played well. I presume that's going to happen again. The thing is, guys like Lopez, who actually usually torch the Heat, didn't do anything. So to me, guys like that usually bring their game up at home. It's hard for me to believe Lopez isn't going to hit his threes this game. Like Lopez usually kills the fucking Heat from the 3-point line.
Yeah.
And he was bricking everything. So to me, that's going to be a big difference. And again, the Heat, as we know, didn't shoot well all year. So to assume that they're going to do that again is hard to believe. So they have this thing all year about falling back. Yes, they should know without Giannis, it's their best chance. You go up 2-0, even if Giannis comes back healthy, you now have your foot on the neck.
Well, the other team has to win 4 of the next 5.
Well, the Heat play really well at home.
Yeah.
Even this year, the Heat play well at home. And they're tertiary guys that have been up and down. You can expect at least to win. You would think they'd win one of the 2 games. Okay, now you're up 3-1.
Yeah.
So you sort of have to win this. If you actually want to win this series, which I couldn't even imagine heading into the series, you sort of have to win today because the Bucks are going to win at least one. In my
head. This is absolutely a must. If you're going to try and win the series, you can't afford, especially. I mean, it sounds like, I mean, you never know what to think. We've said this before, and we were talking about it on Defo on 5 Reasons Sports Network, which you can catch anytime today also. But and that's a short version of what we do here. Although we haven't really mastered it yet, but, it's only been a month and it's early in the morning when we do it. But, I mean, you're looking at an ideal opportunity here if you're the Miami Heat. The fact that they won game 1 is already startling enough, even with Giannis, participating in only about a quarter of the ballgame. Still, that was surprising. And they were handling the Milwaukee Bucks. I mean, they should have no fear about going against a Giannis-less Antetokounmpo-less Bucks lineup because they were handling them anyway. And it looked like the Bucks, had plenty of ring rust and weren't going to be able to shake it off the entire game, especially with the Heat canning an inordinate number of 3-point shots. I mean, just unbelievable. 15 of 25 for a team that needed a Mason card most of the season from 3-point range. So, I mean, tonight's just an unbelievable opportunity, and I would be inclined to be optimistic about it because even if you get the typical response from the home team that's down 0-1, which, as we said, I mean, if you watch the Cavs, the Suns, looked like they might be up against it early on. Kawhi Leonard was playing great basketball, but they did handle things, and in the second half were the dominant team. And you see this often, where the home team that loses game 1 comes back and just completely reverses its form.
Yes.
In game number 2. But even with that, the Heat with Jimmy Butler on some kind of mission from God, you would think might be able to orchestrate an improbable 2-0 lead out of this tonight. Now we mentioned this, in the NBA, doubtful is kind of doubtful in the NBA. Questionable is you're probably going to play the guy. I mean, I'm just going by the essence of injury reports. In the NFL, we know this, that you have to be listed as deceased. And there's still a good chance, like 50-50, that even a dead guy will play. And, without trying to make light of what was a horrifying situation to witness, even on TV, DeMar Hamlin is actually coming back from the dead to play in the NFL, which, is fantastic. I mean, it's a nice end to the story. Let's hope that he doesn't incur any further difficulties. It appeared to be just a complete fluke. We talk about this a lot, that timing in life is everything. I don't know if you believe this, Lubie, but had anything been altered in your life on the path to wherever you're at right now, sitting here talking to the people out there that are watching our South Florida Live television feed or whatever, streaming feed, and listening whatever device that they're on. Do you believe it? If anything had happened differently, like if instead of going here on a particular day, you went there, that everything in your life might have changed. Do you believe that it is a series of circumstances that one thing leads to another, or are they all just arbitrary and separate from each other?
I don't know if they're on
the
purpose.
things that happen in your life. In other words, you were dating a girl in high school. Had you married her, obviously your entire life would have changed. Maybe had you been thinking differently one day or whatever, she got pregnant, you ended up getting married. That changes the course of your entire life. Do you believe that, or do you believe that you are kind of imposing your will on how your life is going to go, regardless of circumstance?
Well, I don't think things are necessarily destined. So I think it takes an exact chain of events to get a certain way. Like if you believe things are destined, then it doesn't matter what you do, no matter what, you're going to get to the same result. I don't think that's true at all, because I've seen my life. Like I can look back. I'm like, if I did this there's no way I'd be here. So like, I think everything you do affects the next thing, and then it's a chain, it's a sequence of events. And it's funny, like you talk about with your parents. It's funny to think.
Yeah, I mean, it's so arbitrary.
Here, you know?
I mean, if I don't move to Miami, do I have these 2 grandkids I have? I might have 2 grandkids, but certainly wouldn't be these 2 young boys that are so fantastic. I mean, so you don't know, right? I mean, you just don't know. One circumstance leading to another. In this case, I feel pretty good about the Heat's chances tonight, which is probably the most concerning aspect of tonight's game. Is that I'm going into this with a measure of confidence that if
not at all.
Antetokounmpo doesn't play, the Heat stun the Milwaukee fans. That they walk out of there. I mean, you know what's interesting? You watch Clippers games, and Steve Ballmer was walking off the court. Here is one of the richest mofos on the planet.
Yes.
And it's weird to see him so depressed. I know we talked with Jay Glazer. We had Jay Glazer, who seems to have everything going in his direction. He's been well respected for a long period of time. Everybody seems to like the guy. I think if he wanted to do a food show, he'd probably be successful with that. He could be the next Guy Fieri or whatever. Whatever he's done seems to have worked out really, really well for him. And regarded, I mean, with all the NFL insiders there are, Glazer seems to garner the most respect, does he not? Like if Glazer, if Glazer says something, most people are like, "Oh, well, Jay Glazer said that." He's not one of the. Schefter has kind of fallen into a couple of situations where it was almost like Windhorst, and those guys when they were on the set, when they were speculating about what LeBron James was going to do, and he'd already announced it in Sports Illustrated that he was going back to Cleveland, and they're all on their phones, like stunned, like right on the set. Oh, Jesus, look at that. Never mind everything we've been talking about for the last 3 hours. He's going to Cleveland. Right? I mean, it's sort of, an embarrassment at that stage. But, I'm thinking very positively about the Miami Heat tonight. I'm thinking that Antetokounmpo does not play. Lubie, you discussed this earlier. That would be a wise move to kind of, and we know nothing about his condition, but just in general, having seen, the way injuries are treated and the way players come back from various injuries in sport. You're thinking with this one, and the next game spread out. I believe the third game is not till Saturday night, Lubie. So you have 2 more nights off in between. This would give the guy almost a week to recover. Do you roll the dice that you can win this game without him if you're Milwaukee? And then, if you lose, you have to win 4 out of 5, including 3 of those games that would be on the Heat's home wood. Wow, that's no small accomplishment if Milwaukee puts himself in that spot. So we'll see. Is desperation going to be the mother of invention in that game? Are the Heat for real? I mean, and if they knock off the Milwaukee Bucks, do they have a chance in there against any of the other teams that would be remaining in the Eastern Conference? The Celtics seem to be playing very well. They're handling the Atlanta Hawks as if they didn't exist, as much in the fashion so far that you would expect a number 2 seed to handle a 7, or maybe even a 1 versus an 8 in that particular matchup. And the Knicks and the Cavs appear to be fairly even so far. Even though the Cavs yesterday, if you only saw that game, you would say that the Knicks have no chance in this series. But we'll see. They already have a win on the Cavs home wood, and now have the home court advantage in essentially 3 out of 5. So good stuff happening all around the NBA playoffs. They get off to a pretty intriguing start, as Al Bernstein would say. And then in the NHL last night, you had all 4 road teams win. Can you believe that?
Yep.
This is an impossible league to gauge, especially when it comes to the postseason. Rangers, I mean, I don't know that the Rangers wouldn't have been favored even over the Devils. How the Devils had a better season than the Rangers? It seemed to me the Rangers were doing great.
2 seed. I thought the Devils weren't the Devils the 2?
Maybe. But they had the home ice against the Rangers last night. And here's another thing about the Florida Panthers, and I'm not sure what to make of the French Joe Philbin and Paul Maurice. I know Jim Sarney was, lauding him with praise for finally saying something about the fact that he thought his team was a bunch of, and this was his word, pussies.
Pussies, yeah.
Okay? Now calling an NHL player a pussy,
That's a thing.
yeah, I mean, that is so inflammatory. Think about this. This guy in this game last night for the Winnipeg Jets against the Las Vegas Golden Knights. And Barron, Morgan Barron, is that it?
Sure.
Something like that. Yeah. Barron is the guy's last name. I think it's Morgan is his first name. I can't read my own writing here. Gets slashed with a skate in a scrum by the net. He's on the ice and he gets slashed with a skate. 75 stitches, Louis, to close his cut. 75 stitches. Have you ever, had some kind of facial cut that required stitches?
No. Yes. I hit myself in the head with a bat, and I was playing a stupid ass game when I was in high school.
Yeah.
And I didn't need stitches. They did the butterfly thing, but I probably could use stitches.
Yeah. It was kind of a badge of honor to have like some kind of scar back when I was a kid, growing up in Brooklyn. And I had to be maybe 8 years old. And a friend of mine was this kid, Stephen Alter. His father was a judge. And Judge Alter had a house in like one of these, areas that were like considered resorts, like not quite the Catskills, but, one of these sort of mountain regions in New York, somewhere in upstate New York. And so it was a big thing to go there. And we go there and it was snowing and we're shoveling snow. And Stephen Alter is making this wild gesture with the shovel, catches me right in the eye, like right above the eye. I needed Stitch Duran to come out there, and I ended up having to go. There was like one doctor in the whole area, and this was, you couldn't have gotten any treatment now. I mean, you would have just bled to death. But so this doctor actually comes to the judge's house because he was a big deal. This guy Judge Alter, and stitches me up. I had 5 stitches. And it seemed gargantuan, though. Like, wow, 5 stitches is nothing. 75 stitches this guy has. I can't even conceive of it. I mean, think about what it took to close this cut. And he plays the third period as the Jets beat the Golden Knights last night on the road, the Winnipeg Jets, 5-1. Nobody knows anything about the Winnipeg Jets, do they? We didn't even know that Winnipeg still had a team.
I was going to say, I forget that they're in the league.
Unbelievable, yeah. And so that was one of 4 games yesterday where the road team won all 4. Seattle beat Colorado. That had to be a big surprise. The NHL is a Wild West. Anything can happen.
Yes.
It's crazy. That's why, you can't count the Panthers out against the Boston Bruins. As much as it looked like they really didn't raise a gallop in that game. Tampa Bay all over the Toronto Maple Leafs.
That was crazy.
They could not have been happy. The Maple Leaf fans there. Tampa Bay was way up in that game, and then they win it 7-3. And the Rangers over in the Hudson. What is it? The Hudson Series, Hudson River Series. They're calling it.
Series, yes.
Rangers 5, New Jersey 1. Marlins win yesterday 4-2. This guy AJ Puck. Did we miss one, Lubie? Kim Eng acquisitions.
The bullpen's been really good. I mean, if you look at the bullpen, when they've lost games, it's been because the starting pitcher gave up 4 or 5 runs. The bullpen isn't really giving up a lot of runs. I have to look at it. I'm curious what their ERA is as a bullpen because it's been really good.
Yeah, amazing. And they're 10-8 now. I lost track. They're winning so frequently. I believe they've won 6 out of 7 and now have a chance to sweep the San Francisco Giants, who have lost 5 in a row. The San Francisco Giants and the Marlins today at 1 o'clock. Starting to develop a little bit of interest, Lubie. I don't know. Am I a bandwagon jumping freak here? Because we have rooted for the Marlins and been obsessed with Marlins baseball in really hard times. We did our very best. I won't say that we were shilling for the franchise. We had no reason to. Because in spite of the fact that we probably were as favorable in the media as anybody was to the Marlins, with the exception of the actual broadcast team. But we tried our best to stimulate interest in that team. I think it was appreciated by some people in the organization, including maybe even Don Mattingly. Now, I won't say that we were the only ones that were talking about it, but we had a deep rooting interest in virtually every game, so we tended to dive into the minutia a lot more than we normally would, instead of just saying, hey, the Marlins lost again last night. Hey, man, they suck. No wonder nobody goes to the games. You could do a whole show and get by with just those components, would you not? And take calls. Yeah, you're right, Defo, they suck. And we did a lot of that over the course of time. Used to infuriate our good friend Tommy Hutton. I remember Tommy calling one time when we were doing a show, the first team, with Joe Rose and Steve Goldstein on the Quam, which was the flagship station at the time of the Marlins organization, and very much solidly behind the idea that we should root these guys on, right? And sure enough, one day I don't know. I mean, it was just impossible to justify a position, with the Marlins that was favorable, and Joe Rose was going off on it, and Tommy Hutton, very irritated and just absolutely almost apoplectic. Tommy Hutton called in and told us that we didn't know anything about what we were talking about. Tommy Hutton, mild-mannered Tommy Hutton. I mean, one of the nicest guys you'll ever run into, if not the nicest guy you'll run into in your lifetime.
Yeah.
Right? How can you not feel good? You come across Tommy Hutton.
He's great.
It's just great. But and I think more importance was placed on what people were saying at the time. And after years of indifference, nobody really cared anymore. But we were huge advocates.
Yes.
So we've suffered through hard times with this team, and I'm starting. I don't know. Does that still qualify me right now as a bandwagon jumper? Because I saw the game was starting at 1:00 today, and I was thinking, geez, we'll just be finishing up the Mike Mayo lunchbox. I can just sort of collapse on the couch there and watch a little Marlins baseball, winning Marlins baseball. AJ Puck, though, third save, and they're winning these games that they were losing last year, Lubie. Is that a big difference? I mean, maybe Kim Ng is the executive of the year. We condemned her as being a loser.
We'll see.
And saying, hey, if she wasn't, a woman and in this position of historic accomplishment in terms of breakthroughs for women in sports, first ever pro team general manager being a female, Kim Ng. And so you're rooting for her, but then, you have to ask yourself, at what point do you say, hey, wait a minute, man, she crazy? With the Avisail Garcias and last year's version of Jorge Soler and the acquisitions that even our own dear friend Dave Hyde deemed to be cosmetic. But somehow they're working, huh? I don't know. Is the NL East completely overrated this year? Is that part of it? Now, this was against San Francisco, this series, and prior to that, they've had some success against AL Eastern teams. Actually, if they hadn't lost all those games to the Mets, we'd be in first place, Louie. How about that? Notice it's we now, not them. And, we're hopeful, though. I mean, we've been given rise for hope. So here we are on an evening of greatness where you have the Marlins to tip it off in the afternoon, trying to sweep the San Francisco Giants and go to 11-8, which was, seemingly impossible when they were sitting there at 4-7 not that long ago. And then on top of that, you have the Heat in a position maybe where they go up 2-0 on the Milwaukee Bucks. And it would be a shocker, I think, to all the people in Beantown. Clam chowder sales would be shut down to 0 if the Bruins lose tonight and then have to face coming to South Florida here, where you're thinking just by the nature of the beast, the Panthers should be able to take one of those two games, no?
Look, I predicted going in that the Panthers would win tonight. Nothing happened in that game that would discourage me from thinking they can win one of the two games in Boston. I just, with the series at large, I just feel like eventually their shoddy defense is going to, they don't score enough to make up for their shoddy defense. Like their offense is okay. It's not great like last year. And their defense, I guess, has improved from last year, but it's still not good. Like they give up a lot of opportunities. And Lyon's a good goalie, but he's not great. Like he gives up a lot of stupid ass goals. Like he does. Like he doesn't give up a lot of goals overall, but he'll give up 2 or 3 that it's like, what the fuck was that? And I don't know if they score enough to make up for that, especially against the Bruins defense. That's why, I think they can win tonight, but they'll still lose in 6. Like I don't see them winning the series.
Does Barstool Sports put out any kind of written publication? Do they have like an online site that you can read stuff on?
They have a website. Yeah, they have a website.
Oh, okay.
They that's how they got big, was a blog.
When Hamlin comes out and starts for the Buffalo Bills in week 1, do they actually put a headline there, "Back from the Dead"? I mean, it would have to be somebody
who's willing to push it.
Was not, taking into consideration matters of taste. No,
you find it interesting that Tua never lost consciousness or coherency. Literally, even the concussions. You can say what you want about how he played or whatever. He was able to answer questions. He was there. He was present. The dude was literally had to be resuscitated, meaning he was dead. They don't resuscitate you when you're alive. He had to resuscitate.
He was literally like dead. Yeah,
on the field. And he's come back to play football, and no one's questioning it. Tua should never play again, should retire, should never even look at a football. And Damar Hamlin, who was literally dead on the field, and we still don't know why you can say the vaccine, whatever you want to say. We don't know why he doesn't have a heart condition, so we don't know why he's going to play.
He has some kind of condition.
Okay, I haven't heard exactly.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it either was unique to him, or very few people, or maybe it's common, but whatever it was, it had to do with the timing
Yes,
of the hit and the rhythm of his heartbeat.
he has an irregular heartbeat,
Yeah.
and it beat. I know what happened. What I'm saying is,
he got hit at precisely
right
the wrong moment. It was the perfect storm, so to speak.
but what I'm saying is they're clearing him. He can go, and again, maybe it was a 1 in a million incident, but okay, it happened once. Like,
can you believe though? I mean, just getting back to that for a second, that Clooney was trying to fix that little light at the top of the mast of the ship. And in the middle of like being absolutely deluged by rogue waves of 100 feet plus, I mean, let the light go, right? At that point, are you climbing to the top, highest point, to fix some little electronic device? Get the fuck out of here!
The whole thing was dumb. All of his guys wanted to turn around. He's like, "No, we do."
I always get the fish.
Yeah, no, it was a movie. Even if it was based on real events, and they were fucking morons.
That's why I love Deadliest Catch, man. I mean, it's like the real thing.
You weren't getting out of that alive. I understand that's how they make their money, but
yeah, for some codfish, I mean, hardly seems a swordfish though. I mean, a delicacy, no doubt. I don't know if it's a delicacy, but always good. Mustang gets excited whenever swordfish is available on the menu. And by the way, try the swordfish at Cafe Seville. It's best in the city. All right, or the Fish Shack for that matter. I mean, and they did a great swordfish at the Even Keel Fish Shack.
yes,
Which was tremendous. Swordfish always seems to come, I don't know. It's, if you're not necessarily a huge seafood fan, the swordfish is kind of a nice alternative for, the average meat lover out there. All right, we're coming back with Grant Long. We're going to talk some buckets with Grant Long. That's always great. And later on, Ed Garcia is going to join us. Tony Segreto should be back with us next week. That's our prediction.
Yes.
He's been busy with a lot of things. So, Tony's going to join us with Old School next week. But Ed will be there representing Texas Roadhouse Restaurants. And then later on, Mike McIntyre has become one of our favorites, the head football coach at FIU. We'll get into a little spring football mentality.
Yes.
Just because spring is in the air, my friends.
Oh, they have their spring game.
Yeah.
The spring game is literally this weekend.
What do you, do you attach a lot of importance to the spring game? I always found that a little bit of a reach. What do you think?
Well, now they don't even play a game. A lot of them, FSU, I don't know. I think Miami, they make it a live scrimmage.
I remember the spring game. I mean, we would cover it on WIOD, broadcast it as if it was a real game. It was crazy shit. But they would do blind paraplegic bowling. I was going to say during the marathon, I'll get into this a bit later on because we want to get to Grant Long. But when they had the radio coverage of the Orange Bowl Marathon, I don't know if you ever caught this. It probably was before your time here on the planet. Yeah. This was early 80s, man. It had Rick Weaver in the anchor chair, and they were in a location somewhere. And then they had, like, Sonny Hirsch out on the course. And Sonny, he wasn't paying any attention to what was going on. Like, hey, they went by me again, man. Because I think it was a course where you might have gone by the same location a couple of times. I don't know why they didn't just run across a bridge or something. But, nonetheless, they were actually doing a live broadcast, and Tony was involved in that.
Yes.
Tony might have been the anchor of that stuff.
Probably.
Okay, let's go to Joe Zagacki. He's out there on the course. Oh, my! Oh, my! It's like, yo, nothing's happening, man. They didn't even start the race yet. What are you? Oh, my! That was a Dick Enberg.
No,
came up with that first?
I don't know, but Zagacki definitely loves doing it. Zagacki
loves that oh my, yeah.
Hubert before he retired.
Mick Hubert. Mick Hubert did a good oh my. But I always associate that phraseology there with being a signature of Dick Enberg. All right, the great Dick Enberg. All right, back with Grant Long in a moment. Now that.
The time.
Oh my. Ponies in Style at Champions, the outstanding simulcasting room at beautiful Hialeah Park. Yes, the grand old lady of thoroughbred racing has never been more vibrant, and you can wager on the races from the top tracks around the country while enjoying a cocktail at the Brass Rail Bar or any of the fine food served throughout the facility. If poker is your game, you're covered in style, and you can play all your favorite Vegas-style games, including blackjack, craps, and roulette, in Hialeah Park's sizzling hot casino. Get a player's card when you walk through the door for all kinds of generous amenities, including our favorite, free play when you come out to the ultimate casino and entertainment destination, Hialeah Park.
These days, we're all looking for comfort anywhere we can find it. Thank goodness for Landlubbers Raw Bar and Grill in the Plantation location, because they are making sure you are as comfortable as possible. First of all, they're not only open for delivery and pickup. All you have to do is go to landlubbersbarandgrill.com for both pickup and free delivery. Their hours have changed a little bit. Monday through Thursday from 3:30 to 10, and Friday, Saturday, and Sunday from 11:30 to 10. You're going to have the best wings in the world. You're going to have a great burger. You're going to have their amazing soups. Again, Landlubbers Raw Bar and Grill. It's nice and easy. Just go to landlubbersbarandgrill.com for both your pickup and free delivery. Thank goodness for Landlubbers for making you always feel right at home.
Grant Long with us here on 940 Wins, 1230 The Zone, and around the world on the iHeartRadio app. I don't want to imply that this guy was a stiff, but who's the guy you keep bringing up that Detroit took while we were getting
it was Stanley
Justice
Johnson.
Winslow instead
it
of
was
Devin
Stanley
Booker?
Johnson, and he's been no longer there
God.
for a while now.
How many general managers deserve to be fired for passing on Devin Booker?
I mean, put on a firing line. How about that?
The only way to get your morning started is with Defo, joined by Lubie, right here on The Defo Show.
Welcome back to the show. Good to be with you here on South Florida Live, the Defo Show. Jeff DeForest, Mike Lubie Lubitz, and always a pleasure to have this gentleman on the program, among our favorites, and really just a great guy to have these various discussions with when it comes to the NBA. 15 years experience as an NBA player, was part of the original Miami Heat, was in the starting lineup there on opening night when they introduced the Miami Heat, who would then proceed to lose their first 17 games and throw Ronnie Rothstein into a nervous breakdown very early on in his coaching tenure here. We welcome to the show the great Grant Long, now with the Detroit Pistons broadcast team, still very much involved in the NBA. Grant, how are you, my friend?
It's a wonderful morning, Defo. How are you guys?
Good morning, my friend.
We're doing great. I mean, we're sitting here with wild anticipation about what might take place tonight. We actually have three teams that are doing well right now. The Heat coming off that victory, sort of improbable, although Giannis went down in the game, and it looked like Milwaukee had some ring rust there, even though the Heat had hardly distinguished themselves by losing to Atlanta and then being behind, trailing Chicago in the second play-in game that they were involved in late, or somewhere inside of 6 minutes to go in the fourth quarter. They're trailing. Looks like they might miss the playoffs altogether. And then they come up with a gem. And we also have the Panthers involved in the playoffs, going against the Bruins, and Marlins are playing well. So it's a good time here. What did you make of that game one? I mean, early on, you were thinking Milwaukee's horribly out of sync. And that's always the age-old question in sports. So you would be better equipped to deal with the answer than we would, having played probably under both circumstances. Would you rather be off a week layoff or coming out of a couple of games? People always theorize, well, geez, those playing teams, they have to play a couple of extra games. It looked like it was an advantage for the Miami Heat early in the contest when Giannis was playing, that they were still in rhythm, and the Milwaukee Bucks were a little bit cold.
Yeah, you know what? You hit it right on the head, Defo. A week off is I think, before a playoff starts, that's a bit long for a team that's sitting and waiting. That's a long time to wait versus a team that maybe has a day or two, maybe 3 days to prepare, and they're playing in some type of rhythm, especially coming off of a win. You want to keep playing. When you're winning, you want to keep playing because you found something that's working for you, and you want to get to the next game and see if it works again. So that's where the Miami Heat found themselves after their couple of victories. And like you mentioned, they fell behind. They got close there for a few minutes of a game. But fortunately for the Miami Heat, they've got a guy named Jimmy Butler who can go get buckets, as he's affectionately known as Jimmy Buckets.
Yeah.
He got them out of a couple of binds there late in both of those games. But certainly, he's the guy. He is the guy for the Miami Heat. And certainly, you think about Milwaukee and what they have, defending champions, one-time, two-time champions, or whatever. They that they're going to get it together. They just, like you mentioned, a little bit rusty having so much time off, but they are a formidable opponent. But I think Miami is just, in an offensive rhythm right now. And, we always say as players, you want to be playing some of your best basketball, not your best, but ramping up to play some of your best basketball when you hit the postseason. And I think that's where Miami finds itself right now.
What's so interesting about this Heat team, and it's something I'm always curious about when it comes from an athlete, professional athlete standpoint. I mean, we all played, but like you guys play the highest levels. Like you watch this Heat team all year, and the gimme games are the games they struggle with the most. Like they literally, the term played down to the competition is an understatement. When they played the Sixers with Embiid, they ended up winning. They played that same team 2 games later, no Embiid, they lose by double digits. They did that with your Pistons team twice, where the Pistons were a team on their course toward the top 3 pick, and they struggle mightily with the Pistons, and then they would go and beat the Boston Celtics in Boston. Like the games that seem to be handed to them are the games they struggle with the most, and that's what a game like tonight scares me about, because the Miami Heat actually are in a really good position. No Giannis, you won game 1. As a player, this idea of don't take your foot off the gas pedal, as much as your coaches tell you, and as much as you tell yourself, act like you're down 0-1. Why so often do we see players go out there and then still play like they're up 1-0?
Great question, Lubie, but here's the simple answer for that one. It's simply the unknown. You think about this. When you have a guy like Giannis who's in your lineup, you know exactly what they're going to do. They're almost predictable. Although they're predictable, you can't stop it. It's like having Tom Brady under the snap. You know he's going to throw the ball. Peyton Manning, you know he's going to throw the ball. But it's another thing to stop it. That's where Giannis and the Milwaukee Bucks are. Of course, everything's going to go through him. He means a lot to their ball club. But now that he's out, you have no idea who's going to be capable of going off for a big game. And that's what you can't prepare for. So it's not the one guy that, like Giannis, that you say, okay, we'll slow him down. We'll try to put our defensive efforts somewhere else because he's going to get his. But now that he's gone, you've got 5 other guys on the floor and some guys on the bench who are more than capable of a big night, but you just have no idea who that guy is going to be. Think about when those 2 teams match up, it's going to be somebody on Milwaukee's team that you say, wow, I didn't think he could play that well. But he's going to have a whale of a game, and he's going to put the Milwaukee Bucks in a position to either win or at least keep it close. But that's one of those guys that you did not account for because they haven't done it all season long, because they haven't had to, because Giannis has been there all season long. So to answer your question shortly, it's just you don't know what's going to happen. They're not predictable as they were with a guy like Giannis in the lineup.
When did Reggie Miller become Skip Bayless? He says during the game, rarely does something like that stick. I mean, the color analyst is talking and usually, giving you some stats or whatever, or, maybe a little story about the guy that just made the basket. But Reggie Miller says, I'm not sure, that there's any other way to look at this except to say that the man's lost his mind, that the loss of Tyler Hero is going to be tougher for the Heat to compensate for than the loss of Giannis would be for the Bucks. Now, for my money, I mean, last time I looked, you could go ahead and draw straws to see who the MVP of the league was, with Giannis maybe winning it again. I think it's probably going to fall to Embiid this year, but it would be no shock if Giannis won it. And Tyler Hero is a good player, but the people here in town are often discussing, geez, I mean, why can't this guy consistently, even though the stats indicate that he's had a real good year, and he was a 6th man of the year last year, and yet it doesn't seem like you can always count on him night in and night out to be a dominant force like you can with Antetokounmpo. Well, what did you make of that? I mean, obviously the Heat do have a problem because when on, I mean, Tyler Hero can be a tremendous catalyst for the Heat's offense, which, as you just said, oftentimes needs a jump start.
Yeah, again, you guys are right. You're spot on again. Tyler Hero is an excellent shooter if he's making shots. If he's not an excellent shooter if he's not making those shots. And then you ask, okay, what's he bringing to the table? We'll all agree that he's not a defensive stopper. So his best game, his best defense, rather, is his offense. And if they've got to find a way to get him going. The comparison that Reggie Miller made, listen, when you're a color analyst and you're sitting behind the microphone, you're on television, sometimes you get a little, get in one of those stupors where you just start saying stuff because the game is going on and you just try to make something that somebody's going to remember. And Reggie Miller accomplished that because he remember exactly what he said, because that makes no sense. No comparison whatsoever. Giannis, MVP, Defensive Player of the Year, is certainly going to be missed far more than Tyler Hero.
Well, we always do the park test, right? I mean, 2 guys show up in the same car. One is Giannis, one is Tyler Hero. and
Yeah.
you're about to go 4-4, expand to 5-on-5. You have first pick. I mean, just on sight alone, who are you going to take? You're going to right. I mean, nobody wants the chucker out there that's going to dominate the basketball, and when you can get the guy that's going to grab every rebound and be dunking on virtually every play. If in your recreational game you allow 5 steps to constitute a legal maneuver to the basket, which Giannis still does get the benefit of the doubt there. All right, what do you think tonight? I mean, just your gut feeling. With your Heat ties, obviously you have I would imagine still a place in your heart for the Miami Heat. What do you think? I mean, do the Heat stun the world and put Milwaukee in a 2-0 hole after having the first 2 games at home? The Milwaukee Bucks.
I think they do. I
Wow.
think, and I said it earlier. Jimmy Butler is the guy. And what makes it work there with Miami is that Jimmy Butler is a superstar, and we hear this term thrown out there quite a bit. He makes everybody else around him better. Jimmy
Yeah.
Butler does that. He really does make the players around him better. And what I mean by that is it gives them confidence. If you ever watch, and I'm sure you guys have, watch the Miami Heat when they play. Jimmy Butler's one of those guys who just, if he needs assists, he'll make the assist. He'll be a facilitator, gets everybody involved, and that gives them confidence. It gives the other guys confidence. So I've always maintained that a superstar can't be a superstar for 48 minutes. He'll have this window of opportunity to be a superstar, whether it's close, whether they need to come back, whether they need to win a game. Those are the 3 scenarios that a superstar can show you that he's great and better than everybody else. Jimmy Butler understands that if he can keep his team close, he can be the superstar when they need him to be. And that's what he does all the time. Everybody else chips in, they keep the game close, so they may maintain a lead. But when it comes winning time, everybody on that ball club understands Jimmy Butler's going to have the ball in his hands to dictate what's going to happen the rest of the way. And I think that's what's so good about Jimmy Butler is that he trusts the rest of his teammates to get them where they need to go, but to get them past the finish line, the ball is going to be in his hands.
And what a pain in the ass he is to defend, I would imagine. I mean, all of these bizarre maneuvers and head fakes and Gumby-like twists that he puts into it. You can't help but foul this guy. Right? Well, wouldn't you just put an elbow on the back of his neck at some point and say, knock it off, Jimmy. You're making me look bad.
If we were on the playground of New York,
Yeah.
that would happen. Come on, Defo. You can't do that.
He wouldn't get those calls.
Although Draymond Green feels like we're kidding. I noticed he's stomping somebody's sternum out the other night.
Yes, a bonus. All right, what do you think of that? Have you ever stomped on a guy in a basketball game? And you were playing in some tough, confines there in Michigan. I would imagine some of those recreational park games that took place around the streets of Detroit, probably had their share of physicality.
Yeah, it never got to that point though, guys. When you start raising your feet up and starting to put them on somebody's chest, their sternum area, that doesn't happen because after that, once that happens, the basketball game's over, and now we're going to turn that into maybe WWE. We're going to turn that into some MMA stuff. You just don't put your foot in somebody's chest when they're on the floor. It's just a no-no where I come from.
All right. I know in Draymond Green's defense, as indefensible as it may seem, Sabonis does grab his foot as he's going by. Now, you're thinking, okay, if he doesn't do that, is Draymond Green going to stop and stomp on a guy? That's one thing. Do you think the 1-game suspension in the postseason, and I know you can't necessarily take into account the circumstances, but you have Golden State down 0-2. What was the 1-game suspension warranted? Are you happy to see it applied to Draymond Green in his spot as an NBA player?
Absolutely. I think it was warranted. My former teammate, Joe Dumars, is head of the officials, and I think he made the great call to make it a 1-game suspension because it didn't have to happen. Yeah, we understand that Sabonis did grab his foot, but the reaction that Draymond gave after that was not warranted. There were so many other ways around that to prevent that from happening, and he just went overboard. And I myself, I'm a little tired of the Draymond Green antics. He's not Charles Oakley. He's not from that brand of basketball, although he wants to be, but he's just not. And his act is getting old. He's not like Dennis Rodman, where we enjoyed Dennis and his antics and his shenanigans. We enjoyed it. It was good for basketball. What Draymond is doing every time he gets caught up in some type of incident, it's not good. And like I said, I've grown tired of his act. Just play basketball. Your team's down 2-0 right now. play basketball.
Yeah, no. I mean, are we overlooking the Sacramento Kings, who you rarely see them? I doubt they were scheduled for a lot of national television games. I have to admit, I barely saw any Sacramento Kings basketball. I remember mentioning to Lubie about midway through the season, you see who's like hovering around first place in their division, and you're just not expecting it because it's been since 2006 since these guys made the postseason. Are they being overlooked? Because all the conversation will be about Draymond Green, and yet the Kings are sitting there up 2-0. And then I guess, also an addendum to that, is Draymond Green as important a piece as he used to be for the Golden State Warriors? Do they need him to win on their homewood?
I think in his own mind he is, but I say not. I think they can win without him. I think it's not like he's an outstanding 3-point shooter. He's not even a good 3-point shooter. The Golden State Warriors win with their 3-point shooting and lackluster defense. And they were on their way to winning that game. They just had their lapses, and the Sacramento Kings took advantage of it. You mentioned, have they been on the radar all season long? They certainly have. And here's the reason why. And it's funny because the Sacramento Kings are comprised of a whole lot of players that nobody else wanted. They got traded there, basically saying, we're going to ship you guys off to Siberia, go play basketball. And all of a sudden it comprised a team that's been very competitive, and this is where they find themselves. And I think the biggest thing is that Mike Brown, the Sacramento Kings head coach, sat under Steve Kerr for like the last 6 or 7 years. So if there's any team that has the tendencies and knows the do's and don'ts against the Golden State Warriors, it would be Mike Brown. And he's applying all of that. He knows their nuances. He knows all of their secrets. He knows what their plans are coming out of the halftime locker room. He knows what their plan is to begin a ball game. He's telling all his team all of these trade secrets because he was there on that team, the Golden State Warriors. So he is applying all of that, and his team is carrying out the instructions and directions to a T. And I think that's why they find themselves up by 2 games, because Mike Brown, although he may not be the wizard behind the thing, a great coach, in this series, he's putting it all together.
Is there a guy you would have liked to have seen stomped on during the time that you were playing? Maybe Rodman? I mean, you don't have to say, Grant.
I'd pay good money to see Lubie on the basketball court and just stomp somebody. That's what I'd like to see.
Lubie, actually, I think we told you this. He holds a victory in a one-on-one matchup with Brandon Knight when Brandon Knight was. I don't know if he's planning on making a return to basketball, but when he was at the height of his game there, Lubie beat him one-on-one in the basement of the radio facility we were working at the time. I will also tell you that Brandon Knight spotted him 10 in a game to 11.
Yes.
But and was on his cell phone talking to like Kobe Bryant the entire time while Lubie's dribbling around. Had a tough time. All right, a lot of other things on the slate, and always appreciate your time here. Grant Long with us here on the Defo Show. Celtics dominating over Atlanta. I was reading something, and you may be on board with this, that NBA players were surveyed, and they voted on the most overrated player, which when they first did this, and I forget who was doing the survey, but supposedly, anonymously voted upon by like 50 NBA players. Draymond Green a few years ago was named the most overrated player in the league. Trae Young got that distinction this year. Do you agree with that position, that the players believe that Trae Young is among the most overrated players, or is the most overrated player in the NBA?
Well, that's a dubious distinction. As players are voting on it, that's a tough one to come from behind. But I would say no to that one. I think he's a fine player. I would not want to be labeled that, the most overrated player. Are you kidding me? That's a bad distinction to have for a player what the NBA considers a very marquee all-star type player. Now he's considered overrated, the most overrated.
Most overrated player. You know what? His profile includes, a couple of, detracting type of characteristics, though. I think most people see Trae Young, not as this overwhelming superstar, but a guy that, has great ability, but also has some flaws.
Yeah, and I could see that. Remember, he's not a very tall guy, but that's not a
No.
that's not a knock against him. But he came into the NBA as a what they call a marksman, a shooter, and he does shoot the ball well at times. We talked about this with Tyler Hero, but when he's off, it looks
It
really
looks
bad.
ugly. Yeah.
It looks bad when Trae Young is off, and he's going to continue to shoot. He has a shooter's mentality that you got to shoot to get on, and you got to shoot to stay on. And sometimes it's to the dismay of his teammates. And I think that's where a lot of the negative attention comes from, because he's going to continue to shoot the ball whether he's making it or not. But here's a little known fact that I'm sure it didn't slip by you guys, that Trae Young also, remember, when he came into this league, he coming off of a season where he led the NCAA in both scoring and assists. So he does have an opportunity, has it in him to be a facilitator, but that's the part that's more, I think, is lacking. People would like to see more of that from the point guard position with him, instead of shooting so many balls, the volume shots that he'll get. They want to see him pass the ball.
I always think of the term line drive brick. I mean, he has more of those line drive bricks than any other type of brick, where it's just a low line drive that's never really above the front rim, hits the front rim and comes out to the free throw line, triggering a fast break the other way. I mean, he's guilty of a lot of those. All right, quick synopsis on a couple of the other series. We mentioned the Celtics handling Atlanta. Looks like Atlanta doesn't have the goods to deal with them. We'll see if they can rebound a little bit on the home wood. Cavs come back and knock off the Knicks. I mean, they buried them last night. This Darius Garland having a game that you would have expected to come from Donovan Mitchell. That was kind of entertaining. And the Suns and the Clippers played last night, and the Suns bounced back against the Clippers. Kawhi Leonard in the playoffs. I don't know. Does he get the All Jerry West team award? You talk about clutch in the playoffs. This guy clearly, his game is fine the rest of the season when he plays, but man, does he ratchet it up a notch once they get to the postseason?
Yeah, he does in his original team's fashion, the San Antonio Spurs. The postseason is owned by Kawhi Leonard. He seems to go to another level when he's playing in the postseason. He gets it done. And he's one of those players also that you can put the ball in his hands to dictate the outcome of a game. And more times than not, he is going to come through and win the basketball game for you. So I like what the Clippers have been able to do. The series is tied, and so the Clippers stole one. And you look at what they've been able to do as a team collectively without Paul George, mind you. Now they're getting it done.
Yeah.
They got the split that they need to happen on the road.
Yeah, that was great. I mean, and they were very much alive in this game until halftime, and then the Suns went crazy. Should we still be riding Lubie for suggesting that it was a good bit of fortune that the Heat had Justice Winslow fall into their lap instead of drafting Devin Booker?
Yeah, we should still be riding.
We were talking about scouts being blind. I mean, how could you miss out on this one? Wow. That's unreal. I mean, especially when you see the games that this guy is having. All right. Have you reformulated an opinion on any teams that you see going all the way? I mean, what's your thought is? I mean, I know we're only one game into the playoffs, but you know how we sports fans are. We like to already come to definitive conclusions about what's happening. What do you think? I mean, has anything really surprised you so far in the postseason?
I will admit that the Heat have surprised me. The way that they're not the way that they're playing. I just thought something else would come from Milwaukee, considering that they have been a team that's been atop the Eastern Conference and atop the NBA over the last 5 years. And they've been there at the top. And it seems that the Miami Heat has no knowledge of this because they come in and did what they were supposed to do and win basketball games. So that's a surprise to me that we have not heard yet from the Milwaukee Bucks. But I'm still going to stick with my prediction as I did early on. I thought the Boston Celtics would come out of the East, and I thought Jason Tatum would be the MVP of the Finals and the league. As it stands, he's not in that race. As I told, Embiid, it's Giannis, and it's the Joker. But I still contend that you have to put a guy like Tatum in there. But maybe we don't know yet. Maybe it's still some voting yet to take place. But he's been my guy all season long. So I'm still going to stick with the Boston Celtics coming out of the East. And out of the West, it's Sacramento's been heard from all season long, but I don't see them going all the way. I don't think the Lakers have a chance, and this is going to be my dark horse. I still think the Golden State Warriors have an opportunity here. And I say that because Sacramento's done what they are supposed to do, win their home game. When they get to Golden State, it's going to be, in my estimation, a completely different outcome. And I want the Golden State Warriors tie it up. It'll be like Tiger Woods coming down the back nine. You hear him coming, you hear the crowd roaring when he was good, and all you knew was it must be Tiger. He must have parred one or a hole in one. He did something spectacular, and he's coming. And the field knew he was coming, but there was nothing they could do about it. I think that's where Golden State is. Once they get back to Golden State and play home, it'll be like Tiger coming up the back nine.
Very clever, too, to wait till they were down to an 0-2 hole. I would imagine. I don't know if you're doing any FanDuel endorsements, but wow, that would be the time to unload on the prediction that Golden State will win it all, because I would imagine you're getting much better odds. All right, is there a good luck charm for the Detroit Pistons organization? Who do they send to the draft lottery to represent the Pistons to sit there in Elgin Baylor-like fashion, which unfortunately for Elgin, as great of a player as he was, only, this generation knows him as the ultimate bad luck symbol, as the Clippers routinely got hosed in the draft lottery. The Wemby Stakes, where do we weigh in on that? Who are you sending to represent Detroit on that draft lottery stage?
Well, you could go back with Ben Wallace, because the last time he went.
Ben Wallace, wow. Who would argue with him?
They got Cade Cunningham under Ben Wallace's watch when he was there. But I say you need an intimidator. I say you bring back Bill Laimbeer, you dust him off and let him sit there and wherever the draft's going to be held, and you say, Bill, work your magic. Go in there and intimidate somebody and get the first pick.
He's likely to beat the shit out of Adam Silver if he pulls out the number 2 ball.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about. You need some bad boy luck in there.
Yeah. You end up with Neil Walk instead of Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Yeah, that happened in NBA history. Yeah. All right, Grant, we love you, man. Great stuff, as always. And we'll all be rooting with you for the Miami Heat tonight here in South Florida. So thanks so much for being with us. And let's talk again next week if we can, because we love having you on the show.
Absolutely, guys. Have an outstanding day.
All right, thanks so much. Laimbeer is who they said, my friend. They had Ben Wallace. Ben Wallace is intimidating. Who would want to pull out the wrong ping pong ball in front of Ben Wallace?
No one. He's Ben
Wallace.
Wallace.
Who's like the number 2 guy, though? Behind this Wemby. Who would it be?
My name's Scooter Henderson, who's actually really good. He's a big point guard, and he's in the G League now. And then halfway through the year, they shut him down because he's going to be a top 2 pick.
Scooter Henderson. All right, very good, Libby.
He'd be the number 1 pick in any other draft. Like, he's legit.
Yeah.
Because Wemby's a once in a generation talent.
Got to dig a point guard named Scooter, also, right?
Yeah, he's legit. That guy's
Here
really
comes Scooter up the left side now. Dribble drive to the basket, and he scores again. Wow, there's going to be a lot of fun tonight, Lubie. You talk about a full sports calendar, and we're always saying, hey, what time is the best time of the year to be a sports fan? Certainly, right now, it's been great, because even if you have your home team not involved, but they're still alive in the playoffs, so you have reason to anticipate like upcoming games. Those games yesterday were great, man. A lot of good stuff was happening, including these wild hockey games. 75 stitches, Lubie. Can you imagine? 75. Holy Al Capone. And the guy comes back out for the third period. I don't know. Is it a disgrace in all other sports? How much, people, baseball players are always the big joke, right? A hangnail, and it keeps them out for like 3 weeks.
Exactly.
Or the career of Giancarlo Stanton, for that matter.
Honestly.
Doesn't this guy work out and do stretching and things like that? How is it he's always hurting something in that fashion? Where is it the roids? What do you think?
It's funny you said that. Like, it's a lot of the time we'll see guys that are more muscular now, whether it's steroids or not. It might not be steroids. We haven't had any sniffs with.
Nobody mentions performance-enhancing drugs anymore. Have you noticed that?
No, I don't know.
We're the only ones that bring it up because we keep bringing Victor Conti back into the conversation. or Dr. Galea or whoever, what was around at the time that
testing,
nobody suspected anything was going on with Tiger Woods, right?
Well, they do testing. So people presume if they're doing testing that it's not happening. As we know, people still get popped, so it still happens.
Roger Clemens, he could go to any doctor in the world, right? They'd all come running to his house. But he has Brian McNamee injecting his wife with weight loss supplements. Unbelievable. Turns out, they might have been juicing also. What do you think? I mean, no talk about it, Lubie. None, zero. Is it because the detection is so great, or they just stopped checking?
No. They are still checking, and I still think people are using it. Again, like they said, whenever the test comes out, there's always a new way to beat the test. And
yes,
so people are using it. Like, people are always going to try and find a leg up, and sometimes it's legitimate and legal, and sometimes it's illegal. But Stanton, I don't know. I don't know what his deal is. He injury prone, call it whatever you want. The dude's going to get injured at some point. That's just
it's amazing. Yeah, I mean the kind of injuries that he incurs and how debilitating they are. Where like he misses half the season as a result. It was like Ronnie Cycli and that weird strain of Asian flu that he had that kept him out for 43 games. Imagine that. That might have been the forerunner of the virus, right? COVID-19.
it was a long time. It was like 30 years ago.
No, but I mean, it was lingering here.
20 years ago.
In Miami. All of a sudden, we got to shut everything down. All right, we have a lot of stuff happening here on the program. Actually, we morphed right on through things into old school with Tony Segreto. Tony should be back with us next week. Ed Garcia is going to join us here in just a moment from Texas Roadhouse Restaurants. Reminded again of the greatness of Texas Roadhouse. And you know what? I can still visualize and taste that steak that I had when it came out of the refrigerator, Lubie, the next day. That's how good that bone-in ribeye was that I had at Texas Roadhouse, and as opposed to like $90 at Gordon Ramsay Steak or some fancy schmancy steakhouse, which okay, I know maybe you're getting like the slightest difference in the quality overall, but it's relatively indetectable, and you don't care because the steak that's in front of you is so damn good. You're thinking, how do they do this for like $23? It's incredible. Anyway, Ed's going to join us here. We'll talk some about the great Texas Roadhouse chain of restaurants that's individually owned and operated, which makes them feel each place feels like home. It really does. Just great stuff. Marlins in action today, and both of our teams, local teams, are going to be playing later on. Mike McIntyre, the head coach of FIU football, their spring game on tap, and you can never get enough football on a show, right, Lubie? Oh, we just like talking to Mike McIntyre.
McIntyre's he's fun. McIntyre's a good time.
He's good. And, we'll have to get down there. The invitation, I would imagine, still stands for us to get down there and do a show. We probably should. We should be broadcasting a spring game. Maybe that'll be a thing. McIntyre takes him to a national championship. We become well known around the country. Unbelievable, Lubie. Maybe we're ignoring a path to greatness. But anyway, we'll be back with more in a moment. Now that.
The time.
It's 8:16.
Folks, Tony Segreto here. Let me ask you a question. What do you look for when you go out to eat? Good food, obviously, friendly atmosphere, not too loud, but good energy, reasonable prices, and a place where you feel comfortable. All those ingredients, no pun meant there, are hard to find unless you're talking about the Texas Roadhouse. You see, they encompass all of those attributes. Really, really good food, amazing atmosphere, good for a family, good for a date, or just a night out for yourself, and prices that will make you extremely happy. Their ribs, unmatched. Steaks, hand-cut every day. Everything, and I mean everything, is made on site, including their incredible bread. It's the one day, folks, that you can forget about low-carb diets. Trust me when I tell you, Texas Roadhouse, your restaurant, your destination when you say, where should we go and eat tonight?
From the newly renovated sports bar to the beautiful bayside views captured at the Tiki Bar, Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill has it all. Located at mile marker 104, the Big Chill also offers waterfront dining while experiencing breathtaking sunset views of the Florida Keys. It's simply the hottest spot in the Keys to cool off. That's Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill at mile marker 104 in Key Largo. For more information, call today at 305-453-9066.
Either way, if they can get the right guy to fall, like, could be a coup. So there's a few guys around that area that actually could be really good if they get the right guy, honestly.
It's now time for the Defo Show.
All right, welcome back to the show, the Defo Show, and we're usually conducting a little old school session here with Tony Segreto. Tony, be back with us next week, but old school brought to you by Texas Roadhouse Restaurants, and we welcome to the show. And this guy has become a great friend of the program, Ed Garcia of Texas Roadhouse. And Ed, you know what? You are the solution to a problem for a lot of people tonight, the people at Texas Roadhouse Restaurants, because Lubie's going to have to watch. I guess he's going to have the Heat game on his television set and the Panther game on his phone. And, and he's going to be sitting at home, taking, orders from the wife there and, having to dodge her usual assertion that he's ignoring her to watch sports. When he could be at a Texas Roadhouse where you'll have both games on full display here in South Florida, plus all of the other action that's taking place, sipping one of those fabulous margaritas and maybe considering getting another one of those great bone-in filet or bone-in ribeyes that we had that were sensational. But a great place. I mean, the way you guys mix the sports in with the fine food that you're serving at the restaurants is absolutely spectacular.
Absolutely. I mean, the bar and even the dining room is a great spot to come catch the game. I'll tell you, it's a ton of fun. The food makes it great. The atmosphere is a little bit louder than most of your restaurants, so you can go ahead and have a great conversation at the same time or just really enjoy yourself, with having a great legendary dinner and watching a game. So, and definitely Lubie's problem solved. We'll have both games definitely on tonight.
Right. He could take the wife out for a nice dinner, sit at the bar, watch both games, do the usual job of completely ignoring everything she's saying, and, be immersed. Now, are you a Heat or Panther fan and or both?
Yes, absolutely. I'm really rooting for the Heat. I think it's super awesome that they made it this far. And the Panthers, I love hockey. Growing up in Detroit, my love might be a little bit with the Red Wings, but it's very exciting to see the Panther play. I'll tell you, I have a great time going to their games. I mean, great facility, great team, and it's awesome to see them do, well again this season.
I'm trying to think, what the order would be, though. I mean, I know I'm having a margarita. I'm probably going to have, that, side shot of tequila. And then now, what was the name that you guys used for those sensational jalapeno poppers that you had?
The snake bites. The
man,
snake bites. Yes,
a few of those.
Get that margarita with a kicker, and then you get those snake bites. I'll tell you, they just go hand in hand. I like the salt on there, so you just get that margarita and you get that kicker tube. It's your choice of a shot. Of course, I go with Patron. Pour that right in there, and it is just the perfect blend. I think the sweet and sour mix, which by the way, it's our own Texas Roadhouse recipe, and it has 4 ingredients. So that just tells you right there, there's no preservatives or any of that other stuff. You are getting some great tequila, great triple sec, and a sweet and sour with a little bit of an extra shot of Patron. Well, I don't say it's a little bit. It's actually a pretty big shot.
Yeah.
So, that's going to kickstart it. And then you get that spiciness from the homemade snake bites, which is jalapeno, cheddar cheese, jack cheese, some red peppers, and different seasonings all mixed together. It takes us 2 days to make those, but they go down so good.
Well, and the good taste lingers. That's always a test, especially of an appetizer too, where you still feel that sort of sensation of wow. The way they blended all of that cheese and the jalapenos together, just absolutely spectacular. You guys literally, should win like the Nobel Prize for Science for coming up with some of these recipes. And I was saying earlier before we brought you on that I had that bone-in ribeye, and I ate about half of it at the restaurant, which was plenty. And then it was calling my name from the fridge the next day. And I didn't even bother heating it up, nothing. I just ate it cold, right off the bone. And it was spectacular. And then I'm thinking that was like the highest price steak on the menu. It was like $23. You can't come close to that anywhere else for that kind of quality.
Yep. Well, blessed that we buy a ton of beef nationally, and that we cut it in-house really helps drive those prices down. And then the quality is, because we inspect it every single day. That is someone's job. They come in, they sit in this refrigerator between 28 and 32 degrees and hand cut those steaks, trim, get rid of all the fat, the sinew, and just leave you a really awesome steak so that way you can enjoy it. So that bone-in ribeye is definitely one of my favorites for sure.
All right, and you think there'll be room tonight for Lubie? The location, where is he? By Coconut Creek?
Coconut Creek is like 5 minutes. It's amazing.
I mean, you guys are going to be jamming, I would think, and if Lubie's got a spot there at the bar, that'll be fantastic. Plus, those margaritas come, in a glass that's the size of a sombrero. It's absolutely fantastic. I'm looking and going, wait a minute, and that can't be one drink, and it was just absolutely dynamite. All right, now does Michigan play a spring game? Are you at all immersed in any Michigan football minutia as they get ready for
the only football minutia I am working on right now with Michigan? Yes, they do have some spring games coming up. However, I'm getting ready to move my season tickets up a little bit, so that is coming up right around the corner. So,
oh yeah, now where you're going to be? You're going from the nosebleed down to the front row, or?
I'm not too bad. I'm in the lower bowl, but I'm in the end zone, and I want to try to get a little closer to the 50-yard line so I can enjoy both sides of the game. But I mean, I'll tell you, if you haven't been to the Big House, that is an experience all on its own. I mean, just such a fun time. So,
well, what's it like getting in and out of there? I guess you're tailgating with the Texas Roadhouse people, no?
Absolutely, yes. And we actually have a Texas Roadhouse in Ann Arbor. So,
yes.
Yeah, very cool. So it's a good spot to pregame a little bit. I may leave my car there sometimes when I have too much fun, but it's not too far away from the stadium, so that works out.
Oh, that's great stuff. Well, Ed, always a pleasure. Tony's going to be back with us, I think, next week. So we'll look forward to having both you guys on again. And a terrific dining experience and great place to catch the games. The atmosphere is right, also, and you're in there with other fans. Terrific night to visit a Texas Roadhouse near you. Thanks so much for being with us, Ed. It's always a pleasure.
Thanks, guys. Have an awesome day.
All right, thanks a lot, Ed Garcia, ladies and gentlemen.
There's
your solution, Lubie.
That actually is a very good solution. I got my parents Texas Roadhouse this weekend. They were helping me. They were checking out the new car. And it's just funny to me how easy it is on the app. And I get it. I'm sure a lot of places have apps, but it's usually hinky and a pain in the ass. Like literally do your order and then you pull up, they bring out your food and they go back in. They don't ask, you can pay, you're done.
So you're driving away with this stuff.
You go there, they bring out the food, and then you leave. And it's always done quicker than you expect. And you get there, you tell them the spot you're parking, and they bring it right out. And it's amazing. Like they do, their customer service is amazing. They do such a great job.
Oh, we had a great experience. Naturally, we were sitting with Ed at the table there, and you're figuring you're going to get. Like whenever I was waiting on the owner or any of his friends in any restaurant I ever worked in, naturally, I mean, you're going to be. I try to always be on my best game. I believe in that, but you're going to make sure that nothing gets screwed up, right? Although sometimes just getting out of your ordinary frame of mind to try and overdo it can lead to mistakes.
Yes. Yeah.
Sort of like any kind of overconfidence that the Heat would be infused with tonight, because. I don't know. I mean, is it still a surety that Giannis Antetokounmpo does not play in this game? You would have to think by anything. I mean, having watched sports your whole life, when you see these sort of things happen, and you see the guy, I mean, we've seen a replay 1,000 times of him going down square on his lower back. I mean, you're talking about Quasimodo time here, no? The Hunchback of Notre Dame had a better chance of starting tonight than Giannis Antetokounmpo. Although he might have been dynamite under the basket, no? I mean, you talk about if he could learn to box out a little bit. Talking about the Hunchback, Quasimodo.
Oh, it's like Giannis is. What are you questioning about Giannis?
No, he's a great rebounder, man. He's so athletic. I mean, he just overpowers people, and they don't care because in addition to never calling traveling, and I'm not knocking his game, but they don't call any fouls on Giannis either. He hammers guys with a sledgehammer. He could stomp on a guy, and he still wouldn't get a foul call. That's going to be, I mean, does that bother you as a sports fan that the conversation today on all of these contrived debate shows will almost strictly be about Draymond Green? And, it's kind of like the whole MAGA movement where, the news people, as much as they despise Trump for the most part, with the exception of Fox, which, by the way, did you see they got whacked yesterday for $787 million in a defamation suit? I mean, that defamation of character or whatever, usually. Yeah, I mean, they're asking for $1.6 billion, and they're lucky to get $3.
Well, that was the thing, is the settlement was almost like 70% of what
the settlement was gargantuan.
Settlements are usually very low. It's just a number just to get them to go away. When your settlement's that high, you're not only admitting to doing it, you're admitting that it was egregious what you did. and you just want it to go away.
Well, and the last thing on earth that you would want to do is parade all of your big time talent and Rupert Murdoch in front of the world, having to testify under oath that they were lying sacks of shit.
Yeah, you definitely don't want that.
And that they predicated all of their, I mean, they're just literally as a media entity supposed to be, governed by the fairness doctrine, Lubie. Whatever happened to that? That was one of the first things they brought up in Journalism 101, the fairness doctrine.
Fairness doctrine. There you go.
We whipped that out lately.
No.
It's right there with the Magna Carta. I mean, I'm more likely to reread my Haftorah than people are to, revisit the fairness doctrine. But I mean, in open defiance of anything that broadcasting was supposed to be all about, Fox makes the statement yesterday that, we continue to pursue the highest level of integrity in journalism. So they're going to fork over $787 million. And that, I think, is just one lawsuit that's against them. I believe there's another voting machine entity besides Dominion that also is suing them for like even more money. So that was great. While they're parading Rudy Giuliani. And who was the Trump lawyer that was on there? Some woman.
Oh, the woman. I don't know. She sucked. He's lost every lawyer he has. I mean, she's horrendous.
So you're literally telling your followers that, hey, we don't give a shit about the truth. And, we were lying to you openly, and they're still following. That's the beauty of it. It's George Santos to an exponent of 1,000. Where, but let's face it, the other networks, they all love this for one. And, secondly, look, Trump buries another entity.
Yes.
I mean, whatever, this guy does, I mean, every place he goes, everything turns to shit, no?
Yes, 100%. No, he hasn't. That's what's funny when the one thing, because again, they were voting.
And the people still love him. It's incredible.
Well, because they were voting for him because he's a loudmouth ass. They weren't voting for him for his business acumen. But that was their one calling card was, well, see, it would be good to have a successful businessman. And I was always like, okay, where is he?
Yeah.
Well, who's the guy that you're talking about? Because that's not literally all he has is failed businesses. He hasn't had one business. The hotels that do well, he doesn't run them. He has nothing. He just makes money giving them.
Trump University, I guess, was my favorite.
But it all failed, and they not failed. They were massive schemes that never were going to succeed, and he didn't give a shit if it did.
I mean, this guy didn't approach Ron Popeil as any kind of an innovator when it came to business instincts. Popeil was selling those Vegematics long before Trump ever inherited that money. No, I don't want to get into all of that. It's just amazing, though, that you can have a development like that. And, and people would still, tune in and go, yeah, you know what? You're right, Tucker. He's Democrats.
He admits that he doesn't believe any of the stuff he says. Look, we understand that journalists aren't supposed to have their opinion. So that's fine that he doesn't believe it. And he still is, being, if he was being a journalist. But the problem is he's saying things as though he means them, like they're his opinion, because he does more opinion type show. And then he doesn't believe it. Like, that's the issue with what they're doing there. They're not doing, look, when it's a news anchor, I don't want to know his political stance. I want him to tell me the news. We know they don't do the news. We know they do entertainment. So it's even worse when he believes the total opposite of what he says.
Completely inflammatory stuff. I mean, much like that sack of shit that, the radio guy who got taken down for claiming that, the shooting, mass shooting was a farce. Right.
Alex Jones?
Yeah, Alex Jones. Yeah. I mean, how much different is it when you know what you're saying is a complete falsehood?
Well, no, and especially when you know your audience. Look, we've gone through history where artists dissociate themselves from the actions of their listeners or their followers. Look, I'm just making a song. If
it's one thing you're a comedian or something, but these were supposedly news people that were representing.
Well, when it's been proven that they literally. When it's been proven that they literally follow what you say, like you can see them say something and then actions take place. There is a connection. It's hard to then say, oh, well, we're not responsible. It's like you sort of are. I mean, you can do what you want.
Vince McMahon, World Wrestling, entertainment, where, they knew it was a joke to begin with. And, still trying to claim that, everything was on the level here. What are you talking about? There was no script. All right. Well, we have Mike McIntyre coming up in a few minutes. He's the head football coach at FIU. Very interesting gentleman, very inspirational guy. And so we'll touch on some college football issues and find out what's going on with his team. Is and a meeting. You're saying I guess a lot of teams don't even have spring games anymore, right?
A lot of it is scrimmage. A lot of it is like a live scrimmage. Oh, we got them. They're setting it up now.
Okay.
Live scrimmage kind of a thing.
Yeah.
Look, my thing is, I'm actually glad to have Coach, and I'll ask him. I never understand how to gauge those because I'm a fan of FSU, right? So when FSU's offense plays FSU's defense,
right.
One excels.
If the offense destroys the defense, you're not feeling too good about yourself.
Like, how do you judge it? Where because you'll see these where they're like, oh, they look really good, and it's like, yeah, but I don't know how to cheer for it. Like, yeah, go get Travis. Like, I don't want, he got a touchdown. Well, then that means the DB got burnt. Like, I never know how to judge.
Well, and it's the same thing like watching training camp with the Dolphins, and you go with the who's hot and who's not.
Yeah.
And then you realize that probably in the end, none of it really matters so much, although, it does take on deep-rooted meaning for coaches. So we'll get that perspective coming up from Mike in just a few minutes here on the program. And we'll be back with that in a moment. And now that. The draft also. We got the draft around the corner here. Maybe give us some insight into some of the players. It's 8:34. Ponies in Style at Champions, the outstanding simulcasting room at beautiful Hialeah Park. Yes, the grand old lady of thoroughbred racing has never been more vibrant, and you can wager on the races from the top tracks around the country while enjoying a cocktail at the Brass Rail Bar or any of the fine food served throughout the facility. If poker is your game, you're covered in style, and you can play all your favorite Vegas-style games, including blackjack, craps, and roulette, in Hialeah Park's sizzling hot casino. Get a player's card when you walk through the door for all kinds of generous amenities, including our favorite, free play, when you come out to the ultimate casino and entertainment destination, Hialeah Park.
These days, we're all looking for comfort anywhere we can find it. Thank goodness for Landlubbers Raw Bar and Grill in the Plantation location because they are making sure you are as comfortable as possible. First of all, they're not only open for delivery and pickup. All you have to do is go to landlubbersbarandgrill.com for both pickup and free delivery. Their hours have changed a little bit. Monday through Thursday from 3:30 to 10. And Friday, Saturday, and Sunday from 11:30 to 10. You're going to have the best wings in the world. You're going to have a great burger. You're going to have their amazing soups. Again, Landlubbers, Raw Bar, and Grill. It's nice and easy. Just go to landlubbersbarandgrill.com for both your pickup and free delivery. Thank goodness for Landlubbers for making you always feel right at home.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I couldn't get your question.
You were a coach that you coached all kinds of teams. You had teams that...
Hey, say it in English. You got it?
Enjoy your trip to work with lots of laughs thanks to Defo and Lubie. Now on the Defo Show.
Still one of my favorite moments of working with Mike Lubitz, although I wasn't on the set that night.
I was going to say, you always talk about like you were there, so I let you do that. You were not actually there for this one. This was when we did our college football Defo radio, and we got Bobby on for like over an hour when we were doing it with the legendary FSU kicker Richie Andrews, and we had Bobby on for like an hour, and that was literally, I think, the first question. I think.
Yeah, you were probably gearing up for that all day, knowing how you were at the time. Probably rehearsing in front of the mirror, asking this question. I don't know if you ever got involved in any of that, and you were going over in your head how you were going to ask this question. I do this sometimes, even though it seems like I'm totally unprepared for everything that I'm doing. But you'll be thinking, okay, we have so and so coming on the show tomorrow, and maybe during my walk of life, I'll sort of peruse through some kind of line of questioning that might be appropriate. Trying to bring the people, whatever the most interesting aspects of our guests are. You may go through a few things, but you had rehearsed this question all day, I would think.
I was very anxious about my moment, and of course, it ended with Bobby making fun of me, which actually made me smile from ear to ear.
Yes, I mean, he assumed that you were speaking in Hebrew. All right, I think we're all set with Coach McIntyre, Coach Mike McIntyre of Florida International University, and this is always a pleasure for us because, as I told you, Lubie, when I first saw Mike at a press conference when they were introducing him as a new head coach, I thought, this cat's great, man. I mean, he can inspire me to get off my fat ass and go out there and start running gassers across the field until I dropped, in a giant schwitz and said, enough already. Mike McIntyre joins us here on the program, and always good to talk to you. Coach, how are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on again.
Morning, Coach.
Well, it's a pleasure, and we're at that point in time, and we're not sure exactly what to make of this because, it was always a big deal, the spring game in college football, and you guys are having a spring game at FIU. At least that's my understanding. Lubie is saying that all schools don't do this to the extent that they used to, anymore. I mean, that a lot of people have a different approach. So what's your theory on that, the advantages and or disadvantages of a spring game?
Well, it's a lot of fun for the guys to have people out at practice and at this spring game. We got a lot of alumni coming back and a lot of different events going along with it. So we're excited about that. We won't be able to do a full game. We're going to do like a spring showcase. We're going to do about like half a game and then have practice, and then we're going to have fan interaction. You'll have fans calling plays. We're going to have fans catching passes, throwing, catching punts, make it real interactive, and have a lot of fun with it. But we'll get some good work done on it.
So I have to ask you, and this is purely coming from a fan standpoint, because I know coaches do things differently. But as a fan, I'm always confused at watching a spring game because either my offense looks good, so my defense looks bad, or my defense looks good, so my offense looks bad. Like, how do you judge it when your team's playing your team?
Yeah, well, we do that in all our scrimmages. And as a coach, you want to see both sides have some good things happen. You don't want to see one completely always dominate the other on that situation. And the other thing you're really trying to do, though, is you're trying to give guys opportunities in game-like situations or scrimmage situations. So you're not really worried as much about the flow of it. You're more worried about individual players having an opportunity to get better and show what they've learned and show their ability. It's very similar to a preseason game in pro football. The wins and losses in that really don't matter. You want to see different players play and see what they can do and give them some expertise, and then you're evaluating. So there's a lot of evaluation. We'll call plays sometimes just to make sure certain running back carries the ball, to make sure a certain tight end has to block, a certain offensive tackle has something happen. We kind of, in a way, script some of that so those young men can get better, because you could go a whole scrimmage or a whole game type special spring game, and certain things don't happen for certain players to show themselves. So it's very strategically done in a lot of sections.
How much transition has your roster gone through? It's a different era in college sports, basketball and football, with the transfer portal.
Right.
Have things taken shape, and how much work is left to do in terms of getting the roster together that you're going to have represent FIU in September?
Right. Now it's constant transition, coming and going. It's a whole different world. You're working with these young men. You're doing everything you can to with them, and so there's some transition. We've had some transition coming and going, and we'll keep having it until really probably June 1st. Is kind of how it all happened. It just keep working its way. It's the way it is in college football right now, and it's definitely a different time for all of us, for coaches and players. But a lot of these young men, that's kind of what they've always known. So we're having to be able to put our roster together and work on that. So there's a little bit of change, but life's changed, right? You got to be able to adapt.
Well, and how has it changed how you approach coaching / the treatment of players? Because it used to be, once you have a kid, he's yours.
Right.
Yeah, you can transfer, but it was such a pain in the butt to transfer that you lose a year. And so were you really going to transfer? Now we've talked about coaches having to recruit not only players out there, but recruit their own players. Has that changed how you coach / quote unquote treat your players? The fact that even when they're there, they're not yours per se.
Right. Well, I think I'm still treating them the way I've always wanted to treat them. I've always wanted to care for them. And at the same time, you have to push them and you have to hold them accountable. And when kids get held accountable and you're pushing them to get better, sometimes they don't really like that, right? Just like all of us, we go get our trainer in if you go work out and they're telling you to do 100 more sit-ups, you're like, I don't want to do 100 more sit-ups, they still have to be coached, and they understand that. They still have to be team oriented and accountable, but you have to care about them, and academics is an extremely important part of this whole scheme of things. That's why you have college athletics. And so making sure they go to class, hold them responsible for not going to class, hold them responsible for showing up when they're supposed to, how they're supposed to act. You still have to do all those things, or, you're not coaching and you're not helping the young man grow at all. So we do all that. But the situation that's come into it is just all the different NIL money and all that stuff. That's where it gets where it's you can't control some of that. I mean, and so that's where it's a little bit different. I think if they just had the transfer portal and not the NIL situation, you wouldn't see near as many kids leaving and going places at all. Now you'd have a few, but you wouldn't have as many as there is right now in the country.
Yeah, I mean, you have a guy that's dedicated to a school and seems to represent everything that they stand for, and then all of a sudden he shows up at Notre Dame for his last year of eligibility. And how out of control is it, Coach? I mean, do we have any idea what's really going on when it comes to these kind of transactions on the college level now?
There was great intentions with the NIL, and some of the young men have it. It's legitimate for some of them. Some of the others, it's a wild, wild west. It really is. And I've heard people say, well, people got to turn people. Well, we're turning people in. So we'll see what happens as it goes along. And we're excited about our future here. And it's just the way it is right now. And I think it'll level out after a while.
All right, so curious about a couple of things. Naturally, there's always, except for this year, it seems like it's a non-topic here in town in South Florida. The draft was always a big thing. I've been broadcasting here for 42 years. Where we used to have people calling about the draft as soon as the first snap was taken in the Dolphin season. People would be calling talk shows, going, who should we draft next year to get this team off the mark? We want to do better. So there was always an obsession with it. I don't sense it as much because the Dolphins traded away a lot of their draft their draft cash that they had on hand, and so there's not as much interest. But do you think somebody's going to make a mistake with this Richardson kid? I mean, you've seen him out of Florida.
Right.
Would you take a chance? And you were in the pros. I mean, coaching with the Jets, who have made more than their share of mistakes in this regard. But and hopefully, that trend will eventually resolve itself, so that we closet Jet fans can come back and actually admit that we rooted for the team at one point in time.
Jets, Jets.
Yeah. I mean, would you take a shot on this guy if you were a general manager? I mean, a very high position in the draft, thinking we can take this raw talent, which looks sensational, and correct what seems to be his one tragic flaw, which is the inability to find his own wide receivers.
Right. I haven't watched enough. They dissect that. They meet with them. They do everything. The one thing that Coach Parcells used to always say, and I thought he did a good job with quarterbacks, even his first one, the Sims at the Giants, he brought from Morehead State, and everybody goes, what is he doing? Coach Parcells had kind of a formula. He had a formula. And when he looked at players, there was a lot of things that checked the box. And one of his check boxes was amount of plays the person has played, the amount of games they've played, the amount of things they've seen is a big, big deal. And so I always thought that's an extremely important factor for a quarterback because that's how they're trained. That's how they get better. And I don't know much about Richardson. I know he's a phenomenal athlete. It looks like he has a great arm. I don't know all the everything else, but that was one of the big keys that Coach always took into thing is how much have they played? Because I think that gives you the best, parameter because you see every situation he has happen to him.
Well, and we always have this question, and I get it. Physicality, you can only get so much better. If you're 6 foot, you're 6 foot. So if someone's physically a specimen, that is impressive. But we've also heard if you're inaccurate, you can improve. But over the years, it's been more times than not found the guy with a big arm who's inaccurate for more times than not is going to be the guy that's a big arm and inaccurate. Like when it comes to inaccuracy, we don't have to name a player. You've been around the game a long time, pros, college, other forms. How plausible is it to assume or think you can correct inaccuracy when it comes to a quarterback?
Well, the young man that just signed the big contract the other day, Jalen Hurts.
Yes.
To me, is an example of a guy that you heard that with, correct, throughout his career.
Yeah.
But here's the deal: he played a lot of football. He
did.
And so he was able to keep training himself, working himself. I actually heard I heard Nick Saban talking about him, and Jalen's a phenomenal young man. I saw him play in high school when I was coaching at Colorado, and just a great person, great athlete, comes from a coaching family. And Coach Saban said the year that Tua took his spot, because Tua was known for accuracy. That's what he's known, and Jalen, they took his spot, and Jalen stayed. He could have left. Jalen stayed. And that whole year, Nick told him that, hey, you need to work on your accuracy. You need to work on footwork. You don't need to, and you don't need to just take off and run, sit in the pocket, work on this. And the young man did. He took it. He worked on it. He improved. And then he left, and Coach Saban said, you need to go someplace where they have a good team around you, and they train quarterbacks. And he went to Oklahoma, and he played a lot and got better. And then when he got in the league, he kept working on it. So to me, he's an example, but he played a lot of college football, and he trained himself for a while. And I think he used all 5 years, correct, in college?
Yeah.
He might have gone 6 or 7. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, that helped him do what he's doing now. Again, it's repetition. It's doing it over and over. It's training yourself, because you can't, we all like it, but you can't I can't fix my golf swing in a month, right? So it takes a while to do it. So I think that would be an example of a guy that was able to do it and has done it at a high level.
There are those of us that you could never fix our golf swing.
Exactly right.
The only way to I fixed mine by throwing my clubs in a canal when I was playing in a charity scramble about the 16th hole. I just said, that's it. I'm never doing this again. This thing is a farce. What is the most important characteristic that you look for, or does it vary from player to player when it comes to a quarterback, though? I mean, if you had, one tenant and you said, this is absolutely a must, this guy must, has to have if he's going to be successful, what would it be? Would it be a physical aspect, mental? I mean, would you take a guy with a big arm and say, I can do something, with like a Vinny Testaverde?
I think with a quarterback, it's really, truly, when you look at all the ones that have done well at any level, you kind of watch them and you go, that person has the it factor. And it's hard to explain, but they can see the field. When they throw an interception, they're not down. They go right back out and attack it. They uplift their players. They're coaching them all. They understand everything. I think one of the best things is how can they handle everything emotionally and mentally. That is the key for a quarterback. And you don't know till they kind of go through it. You can watch it. You can see it. I look for that a lot in high school players as we're signing them, or a junior college quarterback. I had a young man that played for me at San Jose State that we signed out at a junior college named David Fales. He was a backup for the Dolphins for a few years. Yeah, he had the it factor. He could see the field. He could do it all. He played, I think, 10 years in the NFL. But for us, he was amazing. He was a leading percentage passer in America when he played for us at San Jose State. And nobody wanted him but us. And I saw him play. I saw him throw. The way he communicated, the way he could handle things. We were able to, we figured that one out. So I think the intangible factors of the mentality during a game, the able to see things, the emotional stability, the confidence, and then arm accuracy. And I think, so that's kind of how that works with doing it. And a lot of those, you got to be around them to see them do that. You have to, see them play, see them be in certain situations, see how they interact, see how they communicate, see how they think, see how they handle pressure. Is extremely important.
All right, spring game coming up. You're going to get a look at your team in action, and a lot of festivities surrounding that. The details again, Coach. How can the fans come out and enjoy these activities?
Yeah, it's going to be a great night. 6:30 Saturday night. It's going to be a beautiful night. We have all kind of things set up. We got all these play things for kids, and we have areas set up for the alumni. We have an area for adults and different things. It's just it's going to be a lot of fun and a lot of excitement. So show up here at 6:30. It's free. Come on in.
Oh, nice.
And we'd love to have everybody show up if they can, and we're excited about it.
Coach, always a pleasure. Best of luck with that, and we hope to talk many times, in the future, near and throughout the season. And it's always a pleasure having you on the show. We really appreciate you coming on.
All right. Well, thank you very much. Next time we can talk a little NBA basketball. I like that. So.
Oh yeah, I didn't know you were an NBA fan. I mean, who you were a fan of?
Yeah. So that'd be good. All right. Hey, have a great one. Thank you very much.
All right. Thanks a lot. Appreciate it, Coach Mike McIntyre.
I would have gotten his take on tonight's game because I have no freaking clue.
I mean, the coaches have to be, extremely suspicious of their teams when they're going into games in situations where it appears all of a sudden they have gained a huge advantage. And this is, not to discard completely the loss of Tyler Hero for the Miami Heat, because the Heat have a tendency at times, at least they did during the course of the regular season. Now, did they correct this in one game, Louie? Because it seems to me one thing that's happened that is good is that Jimmy Butler has taken command of the team at the in the end game.
Yes,
and people were always questioning whether he was a good enough closer to carry a team to a championship. And the answer to that, generally, I think, the consensus was probably a slight lean into the negative on that. No. What do you think? I mean, people that did not see Jimmy Butler as a guy that was absolutely pristine enough, like a LeBron James or any of the other great closers in basketball, to take their team over the top. They thought he was suspect in that spot.
Well, they because he's not, like Scoop said yesterday, he's not. There's no one skill he has that he's a 10 out of 10. Right? He's just really good at a lot of things, and his heart is freaking insane. And what we've seen, some of the greatest ever, that was what made them great, was they weren't going to let you deny them. And people just didn't understand that. They thought he was disgruntled. They thought he was bitter. They thought he was a child. No, he just wanted to win so bad that he couldn't understand people who didn't have his mentality. And we've seen that throughout sports. That's why Jordan,
which was, part of the line of logic, the so-called narrative about him coming to the Miami Heat.
That's
how he liked buying into this whole Heat culture idea.
Well, and that's the thing is, even if he's a pain in the ass, like Scoop said yesterday, he's our pain in the ass, because in the end, if he can only see winning and it rubs people the wrong way, they don't give a shit, because that's all the Heat are about, is winning. The Heat don't do the tanking. The Heat don't do like this year. Look, even I was like, it's over. Like, as an organization, it's over. They're like,
you never know. You always want to make the postseason. I believe that.
Yeah, and they're showing it. So look, Jimmy Butler is the kind of guy you would think would not let them take the right. You don't have to have your coach do it. You don't need to have Udonis Haslem do. You have freaking Jimmy Butler. The problem is Jamie himself during the season will have these games where he's like, and you'll see it. Now the playoffs, he doesn't seem to do that as much, but we've seen in the playoffs where he has a game here and there where he just doesn't. He tries to trust his teammates. He can't with this team. This team,
especially without Hero. He's going to have to be even more dynamic, I would imagine, in terms of being the guy that was an impetus behind their offensive activity.
Look, if we're doing the reading the tea leaves garbage and the overanalyzing crap that we don't.
Brook Lopez can't stand under the basket anymore if he's guarding Bam Adebayo either after that last game.
Well, that's the thing is there's two things that I got from last game that, they do the key factors, and I think it's ridiculous and stupid. But if you're doing that, the fact that fourth quarter, Bam looked like the guy we saw in the first 2/3 of the season was nice to see. You haven't seen that from him in like a month and a half. Like, he literally said, because he was being really fucking weird. Like, he would have an 8-foot floater, have space, and then stop and look around. And I was like, dude, what are you doing? And then the last, 6-7 minutes, he was like, all right, screw it. And he did the thing where he backed them down and he got close and he shot it, or he went to the basket and he wasn't thinking. He was instinctual. If he can do that, then he will win this game, because they don't have a player on their team that can stop him without Giannis. They just don't. The problem is, will he do that? He doesn't do it.
It's going to be, you love the position that you're in.
Yes,
if you're a Miami Heat fan, you would not have ever anticipated this.
No.
As the 8th seed, they would then go, what? If they beat the 1 seed, would they then play the 2? Is that how that works?
No, what's great is they don't do the NFL shit where they just reslot. They do the tournament. So they're going to play the 4-5, Whoever it
Okay,
is.
wow. So they could easily win that round also if they were on their game.
The funny thing is, if they beat the Bucks, they have an easier course than if they.
We have them going to the finals.
I don't have them going anywhere.
They've won one game.
You do. I have.
And they did it while Giannis was in the hospital.
I
All right. So our speculation is this: that Giannis Antetokounmpo will not play in a game tonight, just based on reports. I mean, we have no idea. I don't know how he feels. We thought yesterday maybe this extra day of rest that we didn't anticipate for him would make a difference. That conversation seems to have turned more negative than positive on that, with the listing as doubtful on the injury report. This is not doubtful as it is in the NFL, where it automatically means the guy will start and play and probably have a big ball game. We'll see. The common wisdom, you would think, whether you have any medical instincts whatsoever, what would be to believe that the Bucks would be better served by having this guy get 3 more days of rest and then trying to come back in game number 3, which I believe is Saturday night. So that would be a substantial enough time, and even with the possibility of trailing 2-0, that they'd have a better chance of taking 4 out of 5 from the Heat with Giannis healthy than they would if somehow he is compromised again tonight, and then in a losing effort they lose him for even more action. So that would make some sense. We'll see. Panthers and the Bruins. Panthers not overwhelmed in any sense by the Boston Bruins in that 3-1 loss in game number 1, but at the same time, they never gave you the feeling they were going to win that game. Never.
Exactly.
At no point did you feel they were going to win.
They weren't getting drilled. It didn't feel like the Lightning series,
right,
where last year or the year before.
Weren't backing down. They had the 45 hits. They were kind of matching the Bruins physically, but
it's just curious why they finished the way they finished. They played so strong for 2 periods, or a period and 3/4 of a period, that I'm curious what the hell happened the 3rd period. Like the Bruins stepped up and they went flat. So I'm curious what that was, and we'll see what happens if it translates into this game.
Without Giannis, I'm going to say the Heat win tonight.
I'm not making a prediction. I have no idea.
I think they have been bolstered a little bit by what happened in game 1. And, have to be, just absolutely salivating, thinking at the possibility of going up 2-0, knowing they're coming home where they beat Milwaukee twice during the regular season. And, in the 2 games that were played there. And, obviously have a big advantage when everybody's behind them like they do, with the vibe that goes on at the, whatever the new name of the Miami Arena is, the Sam Bankman-Fried Fraud Arena.
It's not Sam Bankman-Fried.
There's a statue of Sam Bankman-Fried outside there, wasn't there? As part of the deal there with Bitcoin or whatever it was.
Kaseya Center. And don't ask me what Kaseya is. I
have no idea. I would have no idea. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and make that prediction that the Heat win if Antetokounmpo doesn't play, which we're anticipating, and that the Panthers, I say they go down again. I think they lose worse than they did in game number 1.
I'll make a Panthers pick because I did before, so I'm not going to change it. I think the Panthers win tonight. They were close enough where I think they get look, they got a lot of shots. They just couldn't get anything in. If you do that enough, eventually they hit the back of the net. So I think the Panthers win tonight, and I won't make a play on the Heat because I have a bad feeling, but I won't pick against my team, so I'm just going to say nothing.
All right.
My fingers and hope.
So we're on exact opposite ends of the spectrum here. So we have to at least be right about one game. No, I mean somewhere.
Yes.
Okay, the Marlins go at 110 for the local baseball fans out there. Clayton Kershaw, win number 200. Hard to believe that he's not going to come close to 300.
No.
And yet that was always a benchmark for a pitcher making the Hall of Fame. And you would think if anybody was close, right? This guy was winning 20, 22 games a year, it seemed like every year, wasn't he? I mean, I know he had injury problems that
had a lot of injuries
plagued him. Yeah. And you don't see starters going as long as they used to, but I seem to, think of Kershaw as being, going deep into most games when he wasn't getting shelled
in the playoffs,
which was rare, but nonetheless, it did happen to him. So anyway, congratulations. I always like Clayton Kershaw as a ball player and as a pitcher and what he sort of represents for the Dodgers, who I have some affinity for because of my years out there in Los Angeles covering the Dodgers. And, they were really one of the best run organizations that I've come across in all of sports. Really a good organization at that time. I don't know where they're at today, but, they had really good people there and were very much entrenched, obviously, in the LA community. Vin Scully alone, I mean, was the voice of Los Angeles, was he not? Pull up a chair and stay a while. All right, we've been with you and happy to be along for the ride or have you along for the ride here this morning. Well, we'll be back with Mike Mayo's Lunchbox on South Florida Live at 12 o'clock today. For Mike Lubie, I'm Jeff DeForest. Thanks to Coach McIntyre for joining us, Ed Garcia, of course, and Grant Long. And we'll see you tomorrow with a Hialeah Park Trivia Challenge with Dave Gurgles Gurgley as we leave you now that.
The time.
I think tomorrow, too. I don't know. I'll have to check with the Polyman if he wants me to reveal to the public his Derby prediction.
Okay. Maybe he can come on the phone.
The king of the futures has weighed in on the Derby.
See if he can join on the phone for 10, 15
He has, he has a whole, different take on his stuff. But even you cashed on Animal Kingdom, right?
Yes. When it comes to Derby, Polyman is the man.
20-1. He was without question one of the kings of all Derby predictions. He hit like 4 in a row.
Yes.
And it was not chalk. The chalk usually is off the board in the Derby.
Yep.
All right, it's 9:03. Thanks, people, for tuning in.
Let's go to eat a damn snack.
Look what they done to my soul.